to work for you. So listen carefully to everybody's speeches to you and interrogate whether they're the sort of councillor who, whoever you decide to elect, they'll work with them, because that's who you've chosen.
I think we have DJ up in Newry next. DJ?
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, and thank you all for being here. I'm also going to use my notes because I'm fairly new to this. I also want to say thank you to the Hastings Residents Association and the wauchope RSL for hosting this forum. I want to start by saying that wauchope is not Port Macquarie, just like it's not any of the other towns within our LGA. Each town within our area has its own needs and challenges, its own unique landscapes and economy. I will put the work in to make sure your voices are heard at council and your specific concerns are addressed. For those of you who don't know me, which is a lot of you, I moved to Port Macquarie just over 2 years ago from Sydney, where I lived after university for about 20 years. But the truth is, I've lived all over Australia. My mum was a minister, dedicated to evangelical outreach, and my dad was a grape grower, dedicated to grapes. I lived in some of the smallest towns in Australia on cattle and sheep stations, and some of the smallest, and some of the, and vineyards from Queensland to Western Australia. I'm married and I'm a father of two, and these experiences have shaped my values deeply. As a first-generation Australian with European and Māori First Nation New Zealand heritage, I truly value the diversity that makes our community strong. I'm here tonight because I believe our community deserves bold, inclusive leadership that truly represents everyone. Under Mayor Pinson and her followers, this council has been held hostage by a voting bloc that prioritises political agendas over facts, expert advice, and community voices, voices that have gone unheard and ignored. As a truly independent councillor, my promise is to engage with you, to listen to experts and make decisions based on merit, free from preset agendas. When you vote in September, I urge you to take those crucial 20 seconds to vote below the line and avoid repeating past mistakes that make meaningful change nearly impossible. Diversity of thought and background is vital. It's through embracing different perspectives that we find new solutions to persistent challenges. We can't expect to change the future by repeating the past or relying on the same leadership for different results. My professional life has been dedicated to advocating for the vulnerable amongst us. I work with an Indigenous children's charity, and this experience fuels my commitment to making a difference in our community. I'm running for the Port Macquarie Hastings Council to ensure that every voice is heard, especially those who have been overlooked. Our community deserves a council focused on better infrastructure, improved services, a higher quality of life, and financial sustainability. That's why I'm here. In closing, I want to say I'm not a career politician or an expert on local government, but I am a proven and committed advocate. I look forward to working with the council's experts and engaging with all of the different communities in our council. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Mark Cornshaw from the Libertarians.
Thank you, Greg. Wonderful to see everybody tonight. The Libertarians believe in a big, thriving community. We want community, but we believe community comes from the grassroots. It comes from the bottom up, not from the top down. We don't think that you should have to look to someone up on high from the state or even from the council to create community for you. We all need to create community for ourselves, and we need a council that just does the sort of boring tasks that it's been delegated, but does them well, does them diligently. We don't need people on council who are focused on other agendas that aren't council's business. I think most people that run for council, and I'm not talking about here in particular, but just Australia-wide, the sort of people that generally the message is, I'm a good person, trust me. They don't really run on policy. They'll run on policy-related phrases, accountability and teamwork and transparency and integrity and things like that. You can imagine those on different coloured flags outside of primary school. You know, there's one red one, a green one, a blue one, a yellow one, integrity, transparency. But what do they mean? It still means trust me. It still means you just have to elect me, put me in charge, and and let me make the decisions. The Libertarian Party are running on a bold policy platform across the state. So there's nothing more transparent, in my opinion, than actually telling you our policies up front. That it's very clear. Our policies are on our brochure. There's a longer version here. I've got it over there. You can read it if you want to. But we want to get the woke out of council. We want to say no to smart cities. We want to cut costs and slash rates. We want to promote property rights instead of the creeping property stealing agenda, and sometimes called managed retreat and things like that. We want to support council demergers. And I've got lots of wonderful volunteers. We've letterbox dropped 80% of the LGA already. And I'm getting calls and emails every day saying, I like what you're on about. And people offering to help, which is wonderful. I'm really appreciative of that. I'm also getting a few calls and emails saying, I don't like what you're on about. And I say, you're welcome. You know exactly what you're going to get. You either like those policies and vote for us, or you hate those policies and vote for somebody else. You've got that choice. But it's not just a matter of, I'm a good person, trust me. That is true. And true diversity as well. Because, listen to our answers tonight and decide for yourself whether there's very much diversity between the different answers that you'll get. And hopefully you'll see that the Libertarians do actually provide some of that much called for diversity.
Okay, we're going to start hearing some questions now. Merv, are you about? Welcome, if you don't mind. Merv's our first question. He's going to read it out to you. I'm reminding the candidates, we've got about 20 questions to get through tonight. I've asked the candidates to give the 1 minute answer to 10 questions they're choosing. I'm going to keep the tally on you and let you know when you're running out of your 10. Rachel?
So how many questions are there?
There's about 20 questions.
So are we going to see them so that we can choose?
Unfortunately not. We're going to have to wait till they come up on the screen now. So just judge them as they come up. If it's a question you think you can answer, go for it. And if possible, we'll get through as many as we can. And if we don't, then we might have to send them to you at the end of the evening and you can answer them by email and we'll post them on the Facebook page. I think you might find some of the questions you don't particularly think are relevant. I've seen most of the questions and with all due respect to the people here, sometimes questions may not be actually applicable to what your platform may be or what your experience is. We have some candidates here who haven't been on council before, so they're not going to be able to answer some questions about things council have done in the past. So we'll play it by ear as they go. I know Merv has a question that I'm sure everyone will want to answer, but just bear in mind that if a councillor gives a yes or no answer to a question, they're not being rude, they're just trying to be brief so we can get through as many questions as possible. And they may say pass to a question if it's not one that they feel that they can give a good answer to. Merv, would you begin?
Yeah, thanks, candidates, for turning out tonight. That's great. I'm a local. I lived here for 20 years, so I'm probably nearly a local by now. And I have been involved with a few of the sporting groups in the Wype area. I was a school teacher for 35 years, and I've seen an enormous benefit to children as well as older members in being involved in sport. So it's a very positive physical and mental side of our health. For a number of years, the Port Macquarie Council has identified the area just east of wauchope in the Stony Creek turn off there for a major sporting precinct. It's right back to 2007, Lisa was on the council, when it was actually funded at stage 1. It was in the same year the Glass House or Culture Centre was also funded. I think we know which one got built. So this is not a new project. It has actually, in the last few years, it's become more important because basically Port Macquarie has got no more land to build any sporting facilities, large sporting facilities around there. So they identify this area as a regional sporting facility when it gets built. And when is the big question because they keep putting it on further back. It looked like when construction was going to start 4 or 5 years ago. It was actually funded in the operational plan 4 or 5 years ago. just to move forward, where we are now, and I don't expect all the candidates to have a deep understanding of it, but it's basically a multi-sport facility that's planned. All the planning's been done. I've been to master planning meetings. They've done everything other than start moving the soil, if you know what I mean. It's basically been ticked off all the preparation things. What they haven't done is move to the construction side. So what I'm asking the candidates now, and some of them might have a deep understanding of this project, but it is a very important project for not only the area, but Port Macquarie. I'm going to ask them, firstly, do they have any intent to support this project? Because they've got no intent and not interested in sport, this project, which will be a big plus for the wauchope area to sports tourism, bring money in here. If they have intent to support it, and what are they going to do to help council move to the construction phase? No point just saying you support it and you're not going to do anything about it. Are you going to actually pursue it and support council to get funding and move forward with it?
Thanks, Merv. DJ, you're up first. Do you want to take this question? Not a worry. DJ's going to pass on it later. Yes.
Yeah, so regarding the sporting field at Stony Creek, I had a look into that in the last update on that, but I can see, like, I'm not a 100% councillor, so I don't have inside knowledge, is that in 2023, it was put that there wasn't funding for it, and that, you know, they were looking for other ways to get that funded. Now, I didn't see a price tag on the council website about how much that's going to cost to actually start the one at Stony Creek to get that started. But the one that is just across the other side of the train tracks that we currently have, you know, near the skate park, where there are sporting fields already, that actually has been funded for an upgrade, and is being paid for by the local roads and community infrastructure program, and that's 350,000 of that is. So that I've just gotten that that's what's on the council website. But yeah, if I was in regarding the one at Stony Creek, I really have to understand the total cost, which I can find, and you know, what the more we can afford that.
Okay. Lauren, for the Greens. Your entry now?
Absolutely, this is a top priority for council and has been in this term, and of the current councillors sitting here, they have absolutely every time made sure that this was prioritised in the Recreation Action Plan, that it was one of the top three things. But it is tens of millions of dollars, and it does require grant funding. Now, yes, you mentioned the history of 2007, but look, it's in the 2018 Open Space Contributions Plan, and this is a long-term project in this plan. So in 2018, it says that we will have constructed this by 2030, 2031. So we're not actually, based on that plan, we're not actually, past that date yet. And here's hoping it will happen within that time. It's the construction money that, we need. It's tens of millions of dollars. It's in the 40s. That's a lot of money.
Mark? Going to pass that. Then we have Rachel. Yes?
My answer is the same issues.
Yeah, mine too.
Yes, so
Is it not on? Right now. No. We have a
speak very
battery
loudly if
problem.
I need to.
Hello? There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so the price tag a couple of years ago was $40 million, but the first stage, $17 million. And that's where a lot of the hold up has been so far. My understanding, the current timeframe we're looking at was more the 26, 29 time bracket that we're looking at. And it's been a big deal to settle on that bracket. Thank you, Merv, for your advocacy over a very long time to get it to this point. It's really important that people understand that there are competing priorities across the community for every sort of infrastructure. And so when we have a strategic plan to deliver recreational infrastructure, we need to make sure that we roll that out in quite a focused way, not get distracted by little pet projects, especially if it means those pet projects are in Port Macquarie or somewhere else, that prevent delivery on actual strategic priorities. This has been identified as a strategic priority because it's of strategic value.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Merv, for the question too. A bit of my history.
It's cut out.
So a bit of my history. I've been a cricket association president, a club secretary, a junior team coach and manager. So this has been on my agenda for a long time. I do recall a meeting at Waterman's Cafe with the local member Melinda Pavey in 2017, along with Merv Burke at the time. And Melinda was fully supportive. The state government was ready to fund it, but she said we just need councillors to get behind it and rubber stamp the plans, which never eventuated. Yes, I support it and have spoken about the venue numerous times in the chamber and at briefings. While Thrumster and Rainbow Beach and Tuffins Lane are being looked after, at this stage, wauchope is missing out again. We will need the coalition to get back in at state and federal levels in the near future to have any chance of gaining some significant funding to push this project. It has to be a priority at all levels. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, Linda here. Raise your hand. Linda? Linda. We've got a question from Linda. I'm going to read it for her. I'm not sure if she's here. It's fairly simple. I would like to know each person's views on wind farms and solar farms. And our first response is from Mark. You going to take it?
Sure.
Do you mind speaking up loud? We're trying to get the microphone. Thanks, Mark.
I think wind farms and solar farms are pollution. They're pollution of the environment, especially when you put them in whale migration lanes offshore and when you carve up farmland and forests. And people that otherwise might call themselves environmentalists, suddenly the environment doesn't matter when you're putting up a wind farm or a solar farm. And I find that quite concerning and just a bit awful. I think that they cause a lot of pollution in the construction of them as well. There's thousands of tons of cement that goes in just to holding a windmill up just so that it can make people feel good and not provide cheap, reliable energy. If you want to put solar panels on your roof, go for it, but I don't think that other people should be forced to pay for it. I don't think any form of energy should be subsidised by the government. We should have cheap, reliable energy, and the best way to get that is from the abundant fossil fuels that we have. When people have cheap, reliable, abundant energy, then the climate is no threat to them. The climate's always been a threat to people when they're poor. And the green agenda makes people poor. It makes energy too expensive, food too expensive, and transportation too expensive.
Thanks, Mark.
Here we go. I do support the development of wind farms and solar farms. These renewable energy sources are crucial for reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, lowering carbon emissions, and creating sustainable and cost-effective energy solutions for the future. Wind and solar farms contribute to job creation, economic growth, and environmental stewardship, all of which are essential for the long-term prosperity and health of our communities. Embracing these technologies is a positive step towards a cleaner and more sustainable future.
Is it working? Not very well, and I'm told they're having a problem with all their microphones in here tonight, which will be the last in a long line of technical problems we've had today. So good luck.
Let's see how we go. All good so far. So wind and solar farms each have their benefits and can assist in providing a level of power into the grid. But I think the question is how many wind turbines and solar panels would we install in our LGA and where do we put them? Because a lot of people will say, not in my backyard. I understand most of these farms are programs put in place by state and federal governments and not implemented or instigated at a local level, but I'm happy to be corrected on that. Ultimately, should the offer be made to the Hastings region, residents should have their say on whether or not it actually proceeds. It's not up to me to decide. You don't need to hear my opinion. I want to hear and see the feedback from you as to whether or not this is something we want for our local area. Thank you.
Rachel Shepherd.
Look, let's be clear from the outset here that in fact fossil fuels have been subsidised for decades at extremely high rates, and instead of allowing the market to correct itself and people, the industry and entrepreneurs to naturally direct towards investment in alternative sources of energy, we've instead been stuck in this place where fossil fuels were predominant. Now, of course, we see the situation after all this delay that there's needing to be a sudden investment in renewables, and that is up and down along the way. I'm very glad at least that we're making that transition. But in answer to the question, we aren't going to have solar and wind farms in our LGA. Our main opportunity is actually batteries. We already have community members at the highest level of anywhere else in Australia have put solar panels on our rooftops, and so we actually have an issue with too much energy at certain times of days in the year. And what we need is community batteries in order to be able to make the most of that, even be able to make money from it, as well as being able to support low energy costs for the people in our community.
Thank you very much. And look, when I look around at all of the different community plans, including Wauchope's, there is an appetite for this. Wauchope says it wants to investigate community-owned energy hubs like Uralla Solar Farm and encourage locals to increase the use of rooftop solar, domestic batteries and local mini-grids. Investigate use of solar lights in Blackbutt, Main Street, Cameron Street. This is already something that the community has said they want. It's certainly something I've pursued in this term of council. And look, mid-scale solar, what we have at the moment is a grant funding opportunity for a mid-scale solar out near the airport, for a business case for that, to look into that, because that could actually power the new sewer treatment plant that we need. We need to put in a new sewer treatment plant to cater for the growth that we're having, to build the new homes that we need, and we have to be able to power it. So these things are already happening. Another grant funding opportunity that came up recently is for the Wauchope sewer treatment plant to have solar and batteries to be able to collect that solar energy and store it, and that is actually going to save us money. That's going to save all ratepayers money. We can put that money into something else that you want to see delivered for you.
Hamish from there.
Oh, yeah, I think, I'm on board with, wind and solar farms, and I think they're going to be a great option for the community to reduce the power, the cost of power. And, integrating them with, community batteries and, private batteries are going to way to help bring those costs down in the long run. There are definitely concerns among the community about replacement of, wind farms and that, and I do believe there should be consultation for that. However, I do believe it's the right way forward to be looking at these technologies, because they are proven to be cheaper and more reliable than fossil fuels when they're integrated correctly with batteries. So I believe we have a huge opportunity here as a community to get cheaper power and get the jobs with it. So yeah, that's my stance on that. Thank you.
Is Lisa here? Lisa? Do you want to ask it or shall I read it for you? Okay, well, you read it.
Thanks for taking my question.
Just hold it a bit closer to your mouth, Lisa. It's not working very well.
Many people in this community lost their jobs and were segregated because they refused an untested medical intervention. Do you support the mandates of medical interventions?
Thanks, Lisa.
I was president of a state sporting organisation at that time when those mandates came out. I made sure that no one in our sport was prevented from competing and because of not taking the deadly jab. And I made sure that we still had our state titles during all those years that we had lockdowns. And I think that those medical mandates are an absolute violation of people's rights. I think it was absolute tyranny. You might think that the tyranny was justified, but you can't call it anything but tyranny when you had to look at the TV every morning to be told what you're allowed to do today, whether you're allowed to open your business, whether you're allowed to have a wedding or a funeral, whether you're allowed to have people in your house. I think Port Macquarie Council as an organisation failed. And I think Port Macquarie Council needs, as a first order of business in the new council, to apologise to all of those people that worked for the council that were fired because of not taking that jab. The council owes them at least an apology, if not compensation.
Right, well, I wanted to start start by saying, of course, this is not really a council issue. However, I take your point that there was an occurrence of something that happened to staff members locally, but that is very much the operational side of council and not something that councillors have any say in. I personally said back then and say again that I believe in everyone's right to choose. Okay, they have a right to choose, and there sometimes will be something set up, and I'm not in state government, I'm not in federal government, I'm not in the party that was in power at the time, so that's all I have to say on that. It's not really a council issue.
Mr. Rickman from Team Shepherd.
I'd like to say that I'm speaking as an individual. We on the team all have different views on this. It's been mentioned before that I've been on council more than 20 years. One of the things I stand for is individual rights of an individual to deal with their body as they feel is right. However, behind that, there needs to be education. I think we are being dumbed down here. We are being told, not told about information in order that can help us to make our own decisions. Yes, it was in fact a council decision in the sense that the CEO made the decision. Yes, people have suffered and are still doing so. I stress again, this is my opinion. I will stand up always for individual rights. What you put in your body should be your choice. However, we also we talk about the bureaucracy going overboard. Part of that is because we're not investing in education so that people can make these decisions for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Lisa. And I'm sorry that it has obviously affected you in your life in a great way. Lisa. Now, I'll say again, I'm not sure this is a local government question, as the mandates were enforced at state and federal level, and was also at a local level prior to us being elected in 2021. A mayor or councillor doesn't have input into whether or not our community should or shouldn't follow the medical advice. Now, I understand it's a very divisive issue. Certainly not qualified in any way, shape or form on whether or not the mandate was justified. So what I will say is I do support a healthy community. If I can put an example out there, remember that we have just about eradicated measles and whooping cough by medical intervention. Many in the community, I understand. Many in the community, not only in the Hastings, but nationwide, who lost their jobs were also offered the opportunity to return. But I know what you're saying in terms of they deserve an apology. I don't know about compensation. That's a matter for, I guess, the individuals and groups to assess and discuss with those that were affected. Thank you.
I agree with Lauren and Nick that this was an operation issue in regards to council, and I genuinely empathise with those who lost their jobs after refusing a medical intervention, and I understand how difficult this has been for many in our community. I actually lost my dad during COVID, and at the time I wasn't vaccinated and I wasn't able to go and see him. However, with nearly 30% of our population here over the age of 60, it's crucial to consider the bigger picture. Everyone was learning during the virus crisis, and not every decision made favoured everyone. Medical mandates can be essential to protect our vulnerable and ageing population, ensuring that our healthcare system remains resilient and capable of supporting everyone, particularly during public health crises. Balancing individual concerns with the well-being of the entire community is vital for our collective future. Thank you.
Sorry, hang on.
I'm just going to pass on to Lorna.
Yeah, look, I'd like to say that I'm not going to talk about COVID particularly, because I think it's a bit broader than that, but I believe that medicine should be led by research. It's not a perfect science, but it's the best we've got, and it has done us well. I mean, the biggest change in Australia's health was sewerage, and at the beginning of the 19th century, then we had polio, diphtheria, and think of those terrible diseases that decimated our communities. I was at school with little kids with braces on their legs, and children wouldn't turn up to school because they died overnight in a hospital. with diphtheria. A lot of that's been forgotten. I can't say it strongly enough. Thank goodness we have research. Let's get education, as you've already stated, to back the common sense way forward.
Thank you. Is Robin here? Robin?
Yeah.
You want to ask this question?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can ask it.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, that's question.
This question comes up from last week's meeting, which I didn't attend, but I actually watched it on video. After a petition was presented to council and its concerns dismissed, registered letters were sent to each sitting councillor regarding some library books that contained pornographic images, but no replies were received. Why didn't any sitting councillors reply, and how would other candidates deal with books that are inappropriate for children being placed on our library shelves? Thank you. Thank you. Another question came up at the Meet the Candidates in Port Macquarie. I went and had a look and did find an email from the gentleman who posed that question, but also directly after that email was an email from our staff to say, you may have received this email letting you know that we are responding, that we are handling it. And that is why I didn't respond. I've only seen the cover of that book that I saw in the email, and it does say not for under 15-year-olds. So I would say it's likely to be quite appropriate for above 15-year-olds, and that if you don't want to read the book, don't pick it up.
Obviously can't answer the first bit about the previous council, but in terms of going forward, I have seen that book, and I think it's just an easy test for anyone that wants to be a librarian or anyone that wants to work in a decision-making role in council. Would you put this book on the shelf for kids to pick up? And if they say yes, thanks very much, we'll get back to you. It's been nice, have fun. Thanks. And that person's not appropriate to have a decision-making role in council. And anybody in our current council staff who supports that book being in the library needs to find another job. Perhaps they can, perhaps they can be mowing the lawns somewhere. They don't necessarily need to be fired completely, but they need to not have a role where they're making decisions about what is put in front of children.
So again, let's be clear, we're not talking about this material being put on in the kids section. We're talking about a book that's clearly labelled MA 15 plus, and been put in the appropriate section. The second thing I'd like to say is that I don't know if Charles is here today, but at the last Meet the Candidate, I likewise said that I hadn't seen this issue raised, and so I'd like to apologise for that if that's not true, because it did come across our emails that have been directed onwards. So apologies for that. My last point is that for me, this becomes again a matter of personal responsibility. If you don't, it's not appropriate for a child to be reading those books, and if someone thought that they were appropriate to be put in the child section, I agree that would be extremely concerning. But parents need to be taking responsibility for their children and what they're accessing and what they're seeing, and adults need to be taking responsibility for what they choose to read and not read.
This is from Labor.
I'd just like to say that I've read through the customer complaint policy since that question was asked, because it was asked as a gotcha type question at the last meeting, and really the customer complaint policy would handle that very well, and there's a flow chart to go with it, and it would have gone through the regular steps for a complaint. So why bring it to Meet the Candidates night when you have a process to do something about it?
Next.
Thank you very much. I've got to admit, I don't recall seeing the petition by email. I'm happy to look it up in that respect. We did receive a lot of correspondence, and I did not receive a registered letter, therefore I could not reply. I haven't seen the publications referred to. What one person might consider inappropriate, another might consider as educational. I trust in our library staff to do their job. I don't believe we should turn this region into a nanny state, so to speak. You have the freedom to read or not read what you want. As a parent or a guardian, you have the power to determine what material your child should see or not see, whether it's in print or online. Thank you.
Okay. Did you want to respond?
I just want to point out that the guidelines are very clear from the State Library. Once a book meets the assessment criteria, there is no censorship on books. And books are sourced by requests and trends and at the discretion of our librarians. Books that have more targeted themes, such as the young adult graphic novel Gender Queer, sometimes have a content warning recommended by the Public Library Association. The one in question absolutely does. And due to the implementation of texts like these, staff at the library have created a purpose-built, clearly marked area of the library to house such titles. Not hidden away in shame, but celebrated for what they are and who they inform. It's worth remembering that historically those who sought to extract books from circulation often did so out of fear rather than understanding. Perhaps it would be more constructive to educate ourselves on the content before making such drastic accusations. Thanks.
Is Peter here? No, I'll ask the question for him. CEO Claire Allen says council and our community are facing key financial issues that include severe cash shortfalls in the sewer and water funds. And the general fund is projected to have cash shortfalls from 2027-28 onwards of $151 million, plus yearly operating losses over the decade totaling $237 million. How do you plan to work together to mitigate the significant financial shortfall? Hamish, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so when I was making the decision to run for council, this is one of the biggest things that I was concerned about going forward, is that, starting next year, we will have an $8 million deficit and obviously compounding over the decade to that figure. This is actually the graph, when you look at it, and it is all red, it is quite scary. We're going to be in a situation where we're going to have, there's figures here of the cuts that they'll have to make to maintenance or putting rates up. And that's, just the figures in that have been released, which is quite scary. If I got in, I'd really like to speak with the people working in the council and figure out what options we have. And I just understand more about financials. There's only limited information, since I'm not a senior councillor, to look into that. But I believe, it's going to be something that's going to be hanging over the entire next time of council.
Thank you, Hamish, too, for your response there. It is not a great situation to be in, but we are putting our hands up to represent you and to try and do our best to resolve the situation. It will take a number of years to fix, as you can imagine. We have been banging the drum and warning people for the last 2.5 years that decisions being made by the voting bloc were not good for our community and that we needed to change. And this is what we're looking at coming up to this election, that you need to ensure you get a good mix of people, a good variety from the different teams. In particular, I guess the 4 teams that only have 4 members each, they're not looking to have a voting bloc. So keep that in mind when you go to the polls and you're looking at the various columns, to choose carefully and to have a look at who may be able to assist you. Get a variety of people. It's what we've been asking, what we've been saying, what I keep telling you as well, that we need to be financially responsible, which means we have to look at every department, every area of council that we can, which we have been doing for the last couple of years to try and work on those deficiencies. So we'll just keep plugging away. Thank you.
I want to comment more broadly, I guess. I understand the concerns many of you have in our community about our community's future and how we manage our resources and finances. My commitment is to a strategy of growth that supports both our environment and our economy without risking our council's future. By focusing on sustainable development and financial sagacity, we can ensure the area remains a thriving community for all now and into the future. I just also want to say that this isn't a new problem. It's been known about for quite some time. When the projections were done, when the rate freeze was voted on, this was highlighted. So it's been known about for a while. Let's do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute is nowhere near long enough to answer this question. I'm going to follow this up with some social media videos. So what I'd like to use this time for is briefly talk to you about the reserves. We have about 30 something million in the reserves at the moment. Almost all of it, 99.5% of it is fully allocated and is going to be almost fully exhausted by the end of 2027 because of the already planned major infrastructure projects that are in the pipeline. The Kawara water filtration plant that's going to ensure our water security for the future. The wastewater, the Thrumstar wastewater treatment plant that's going to make sure that we have enough sewage capacity as our community grows in a responsible way. And likewise, the major road and other infrastructure projects we already have planned. That is publicly available information. It's been published every single month in the council meeting reports for anyone who's cared to look. So I really encourage people not to think of the reserves as some sort of treasure chest we could be throwing around, because that's often how it's talked about by people who don't have a clear understanding.
Thank you again. I'll do my best to be brief. A range of things. I brought a notice of motion to the last council for a budget development policy for the next term so that we can get clearer about our income and expenses. We're on a transformation program at the moment to get better at asset management. That means getting those condition assessments done so that we really know the true costs of our asset maintenance and renewals that we need to be setting aside and planning for. Applying for strategic grant funding applications. I've already flagged my interest to bring a revenue task force together next term to look at income other than rates and charges. What council could do, there are ideas. Listen to expert advice, that's another thing. And continue to lobby the federal government for a greater percentage of the Commonwealth tax revenue, because as most people know, we used to have around 1% of the Commonwealth tax revenue, and that was reduced to around 0.55%, and that's just not enough. We build the most of the infrastructure in Australia, the local government, and get so little of the tax money. So also New South Wales should get more GST.
There's a lot of talk about revenue and about cash flow and about responsible management and sustainability and buzzwords like that. What about the poor person at home who is struggling to put food on the table? Real wages have been pushed back to 2011 levels by bad policy from our federal government, both sides of the duopoly. And people are doing it very, very tough. And when people are doing it tough, it's generally kids that miss out. Parents want to provide food and shelter to their kids, but they have to sacrifice things like dance lessons, music lessons, things that are considered discretionary, gym memberships, things like that are often the only things that can be cut. When people talk about the council and its woes and its budget and things like that, they think, well, ratepayers are just an endless bucket that we can dip into. I don't agree with that. I'll never support a rate rise.
Sorry about that. Okay, Peter's not here, so I'm going to ask this question. Can you please provide examples of how you, if elected, will vote with integrity, honesty, and transparency? And we're beginning with DJ. You can pass it on if you want.
I'll keep it going.
It's quite a heavy one. I am an independent candidate and I don't have a team. So I see it as my job to be, I guess, a completely unbiased advocate for the community through consultation with the community. Whether that's through forums like this, accessing different groups within the community and understanding the needs of all the different people and groups in our community. Our community strength lies in diversity, and I kind of pride myself in the fact that I can adapt, and I think that I can present what's told to me in the most unbiased way. Thank you.
I was going to say the simple answer is yes, but it does say please provide examples. Well, goodness, all I could say is I know not everybody watches council meetings, but I always stand up and speak on an item, explain my thoughts, share the views with other councillors, whether that seems to be in line with what others are thinking or against it. And I can't be any more honest and transparent than that, and I believe that is acting with integrity. So I believe my evidence is there for you if you'd like to go back and watch any of the numerous council meetings that are recorded.
Thank you. Along the same lines, that over the past 2.5 years, although we had the voting block, we had 4 unaligned independent members who were elected from different tickets. And during the last 2.5 years, if you have a look at the voting aspect of it, we have not always voted together. We have often got up and spoken on issues, trying to persuade our point of view. I have gone, hey, I hadn't considered that option or that part of it, and changed my vote at the time. And that's what you're supposed to do in a democratic process while you're in the chamber. Listen to others, listen to the arguments, and then make up your mind along with the information that's provided. So keep that in mind. We have been independent the whole time, us 4, so to speak, and the voting count would indicate that as well, that we have always fought independently, with integrity, with honesty, and we'll continue to do that. That's what we do, that's our job.
Yeah, so regarding this, I think, being honest about your motives is one way you can be, transparent about why you're doing it. So, for example, running because I'm frustrated with, affordability for people, the cost of living, like Mark just mentioned as well. And just, communicating with the locals, listening to the have your say that the council does. Like we're running and we're only thinking that we're going to be getting one person on council anyway, so we're going to have to engage with the other councillors. There's not going to be this chance for block voting, so you will have that transparency just through, speaking with the other representatives of council. So yes, engaging with the community, speaking with members and looking at groups, that are throughout the community as well, and just speaking with them and understanding what they want, what they think, and understanding how they should be done. I believe that's ways that you have integrity and honesty and transparency. So yeah.
Rachel.
Thank you. Very important to me, and there's no point saying these words unless you're backing it up with concrete action, and that's the commitments that we've made as a part of our own policy that I invite you to look into as well. So like Lauren, you can look back at the meetings and see that I put my position on full display every time for people to understand why I'm voting for something. And for me, that's integrity and transparency. I voted for disclosures to no longer be accepted by council, disclosures of councillors' pecuniary interests, disclosures to no longer be accepted by council if they are visibly incomplete. That was unfortunately voted down. I support and will vote for councillor KPIs, as I did in this term when it was raised by another councillor, because I thought that was a way to ensure reporting on councillor activities to our community. I support making disclosures of non-pecuniary, less than significant interests if you're not sure about something. I don't think you should refrain from telling the community a possible interest because you think, oh, probably not. I always support putting it on the record. Finally, I think, and this isn't a team chamber position, we should be documenting any meetings that occur with developers, and that should be a part of the strengthening the code of conduct.
I think these sort of words are way overused. They're the sort of words that if you have to tell people that you are those things, you probably aren't. You're probably covering and coping for something. I don't use those sort of words in my brochure. I just say exactly what I stand for. And so these are my policies, and this is what I'm going to do. Thanks.
Our next question is about the referendum. As most of you know, when you vote on September the 14th, you're going to be asked a referendum question whether or not you support reducing the current number of councillors to 7. If you do, if you vote yes, then that at the next election in 4 years' time, there'll only be 7 councillors that you can elect. So we're going to ask the candidates what they think of that referendum. First one up is Labor, Hamish.
Yeah, so,
Oh, you may have to just speak really loudly, Hamish.
yeah,
That's
okay.
Labor, but it's not working well.
So, my stance on that one.
A bit louder, please, Hamish.
Oh, okay. So my stance on that one is that, and the rest of Labor, is that it's just going to reduce representation. So as we've seen in the last term of council, is that, as we've seen in the last term of council, is that there's just been this block voting where, one ticket that got in, that had the majority, has just been passing whatever they wanted and ignore the rest of the current sitting councillors. And just any sort of change that they would like to make, or modification, amendment or anything, is just being ignored. And that doesn't create a full representation of the community if just one half, if one half is just completely getting ignored. So it will reduce representation. You will have, we believe that it will have a less diversity of councillors being on the council. Yep. Mark.
Yep. Just a little addendum to my last answer. If you have to hope that the people you elect are honest, that in itself shows that there's a problem with the system. I'd like to have a council that you could put your worst enemy on and it wouldn't bother you, because the council is not controlling people's lives. The council is just sticking to what its duties are, and the community is taking responsibility for their own lives and flourishing. On this question, I don't support I'm going to vote no to that referendum question. It's in my interest, of course, as a minor party and as someone who's trying to get a toehold on council for the first time, for there to be more spots available. There'll be other people in that position in the future, I'm sure. And so I think it would be better to have a larger council team than a smaller one.
Okay. I've already mentioned that diversity of thought and background is vital, and that's part of my campaign platforms. Our population is increasing, and we will need more diversity and representation, because it will be harder to access everyone's views and opinions. Culling the number of councillors will decrease this, so I am against
Thank you. So the answer to the first question was, or is, $70,000 from memory. Money that could have been spent elsewhere in the community. The second part of the question is, were you asked to comment or have any involvement in the question? Answer is no. That was just put through with a block. And where do I stand on it? Well, my response would be, again, please mark or tick no in relation to the reduction of numbers from 9 down to 7, which will come into effect in 2028. If you look at the scenario around the local northern region of New South Wales, the majority of councils have 9. A lot of those councils have an equal population to ourselves. There's 2 exceptions. Mid Coast Council, very large. Gloucester to Foster to Hawk's Nest, they have 11. Bellingen, 13,000 people, they have 7 councillors. That makes sense. When you've got a population of 90,000 plus and growing, reducing from 9 to 7 makes no sense whatsoever. So please vote no about the reduction in councillor numbers at the referendum. Thank you.
This is Kingsley from Team Shepherd.
Yeah, and I tend to grab this one and run with it, because it's the main reason it tipped me over to trying to stand again. Democracy relies on input from the outsiders, relies on representation. So what we're giving away for the amount we're saving, which is about 30,000 each councillor, so saving 60,000 out of $1.5 million budget. What it's doing is it's not shrinking government. That's the thing. A lot of people think, oh yeah, great, small government's fantastic. I'm sure Mark will agree there. But you're not shrinking government. The council is going to stay the same size. You're shrinking your representation into that government. And that's the issue here. I also have a grave concern that it opens it up to, I'll say the block voting, but what it really does is it opens it up to vested interests taking control of your council. So I'm a developer. All I have to do is run a ticket, independence, I'm very well cashed up. We run 8 on the ticket, make sure at least 4 get in. All of a sudden, I've got control of your council. So there's some big issues we have to face there. So really think hard about voting on that one, please.
Are you having trouble hearing up here? Well, if you are, I'm sorry? Okay, Laura.
Okay, I can amplify. Look, let's just look at the way that the council ticket is looking at the moment with 6 councillors on 1 ticket. Now, I've contacted the AEC. And at this point, it looks like there would be nothing preventing a ticket of 7 running, say, for the 2028 election, and that's everybody. This council that we've just finished, this council term, there's been a block in there that's been operating as if it was in government and we were all in opposition. And they believed they had a mandate, because whatever they said to you, even if it was a day before the election, that's what they meant to get in and do. Now, we're not state government, we're not federal government. So why would we give our power away to a group to say, oh, you just go, you get to have your say on every strategy, every plan, everything we do. We don't get that privilege at state and federal government, do we? We elect them and then they go ahead and say, we've got this mandate because that was our platform. Let's not lose, what we have with local government, where we don't have a block in there we shouldn't have a block in there telling us they have the plan and they're just going to go with it. We want to keep hearing from you as we go. Are we still on track? Are things changing? What do you think about this? So vote no. They also want a pay rise, by the way.
Helen, I know you're here somewhere. Shall I just read it out because I can yell? Okay.
With emphasis on the water.
I'll try. I would like your opinion on the proposed Rosewood Quarry project that brings 200,000 tonnes of building rubble through town to be sorted, crushed and recycled, with the potential of introduction of asbestos and fire ants, etc. This quarry is spring-fed and is 200 metres uphill from Council's pumping station to the area's reticulated water supply, and less than 200 metres from the reservoirs to where the water is pumped. So we're after opinions on that from DJ. Do you care to answer?
It sounds like a very important issue, but I'm not.
Yep. Labour, Hamish.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that quarry at Rosewood, so that's something that I'll have to get more information on. But yeah, I wasn't aware of that, so
sure.
That's very good to know.
That's perfectly reasonable. Lauren from the Greens.
I would also like to take that one on notice and look more thoroughly into that one.
No worries. Mark?
I'll pass as well.
Yep. Rachel? Lisa, you're going to speak to it?
I'll just make a brief comment on it.
I'm afraid the mic's still off.
To say that this came to council a couple of months ago. It is, to my way of thinking, a horrifying proposal. All of those things are true, and I would like to add traffic to that. The idea of becoming a waste repository for not only our waste, but waste coming from other areas, I think it would be horrifying to most people. And at the moment, it is with the council staff. They're assessing it. Let's talk about it after the election. Yes, about how we go forward. With this. Thank you.
I concur with Councillor Ingerman.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next question.
Oh, this is about the school. Is that so relevant?
Yeah, let's skip to, is John here? John? Let's skip to the next one because I think that's been dealt with.
That's been dealt with, yeah.
Joyce, are you here? Do you want to ask or do you want me to? Okay. Would you support combining the ordinary council meetings and public forums again, changing to a 6 p.m. evening meeting to allow more of the public to attend? Next.
Absolutely. I can't speak for the other teams, but we have 4 full-time employees in our tickets. I've been sacrificing days at work for the 10 a.m. Thursday meetings every month. There's also briefings that we do on a Thursday when we're not meeting. I have a very understanding employer, which is great. I must be okay with my job. For them to trust me to take so much time off, I do make up for it outside of hours anyway. So if that were an option, if that was something that we to bring to council, I will certainly vote in favour of that. So thank you, Joyce, for that. That's great.
Great job.
Yes.
Yes, as well.
Probably yes. I don't know about the 6 o'clock, but I would like to hear more from the community about what makes it accessible to you to come. So if that was something that we got overwhelming support for, absolutely. I also work, so yeah, look, I do think historically, I think people probably did attend more when it was an evening, but it started at 5, not 6. Sometimes these meetings do go on for a few hours, and getting into it 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night can be tricky. So perhaps a little bit earlier than 6, but generally speaking, I think yes, but I'd like to hear more from the community about what they want.
I agree with Lauren. I'd like to hear from the community as well. Personally, I am a bit of a night owl, and I have my Einstein windows in the evenings, so that would definitely suit me. So I would say yes as well.
Amy.
Yeah, for this one, yeah, I think it's a good idea, to have them later in the afternoon. I've actually been going to the council meetings as well. I've noticed that there's not many people there at all during the day when it's on in the morning because people are working. And it's the same for many of the councillors that they are working full time as well. So you are having to get days off, which affects the employment of the councillors, but also of people being able to attend the meeting. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Is Heather here? Do you want to ask it or you want me to? Please do.
My understanding is that the council is responsible for lots of services. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I'd like to know if, when you get elected, what would you like to focus on? Is there anything in particular focus on any issues?
You got an order for us, Craig?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Have you got a speaking order for us on this one? It's not on the screen.
Yeah, unfortunately our screen's just gone flat.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't think I put it on.
Councils don't have ministries as such, like a state or federal government. It's not like there's a roads minister and a health minister and things like that. What I'd like to focus on is getting woke agendas out of council, saying no to smart cities, cutting costs and slashing rates, promoting property rights, and supporting council demergers. I'd like to focus on those 5 things.
What's the definition of woke?
You can Google that. CJ?
Yeah, absolutely. So my platform is based on the information fed back to me by the community around diversity and inclusion initiatives, sustainable and financial responsible community development, and creating more people communities. This is really important to me, and it's only become kind of more relevant to me since having children. And it's about catering for everyone, families, retirees, singles, reflecting our cultural diversity. We need practical enhancements like safer streets, more walkable streets, multi-purpose parks, accessible playgrounds, and even dog parks that you can access without having to go. So I guess that's the
Smart cities. And then this one over here.
That's for us.
Lauren?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the question. Well, look, since becoming a councillor, I've realised I'm passionate about the whole lot, so I don't think I could pick one thing. And it's a complicated thing. It's a big organisation, but I'm actually really quite interested and involved across everything council does. It's a bit of an addiction, actually. But I would actually like to say that I have put out some things that I would like to do next term. And yes, they are words, but I can back them up with evidence. So things like helping to establish an open and accountable council. Well, an example of that is that I instigated a review of those returns of interest of designated persons at Port Cory Hastings Council against the standard to see how we were performing. That's a tangible, real thing that you can do to show that that's what you're standing for. Now, I have multiple other things which I would ask you to come and grab from me later rather than use up all that time. But I'm not sure where this might leave, Mark, because I don't think there's a plan for a demerger or a smart city. So I'm not quite sure what other policies you're going to actually do in council. We have a smart community roadmap. That's not a smart. No, it's not. Come and have a read if anyone would like to come and have a read.
Okay, thank you.
Come and have a read if anyone's curious about that plan.
Ask Adam Roberts, he knows.
He's not here. Rachel is. Can you please let the candidates answer the question?
Thank you. So my view is that the best service community service council can be doing is actually delivering on core business, which I don't think is the answer that you're after, but it's very important. And the core business that we're looking at the moment is a series of strategic work and moving into the action plans that have been delayed during this term of council because of ad hoc kind of weird projects and ideas that have slowed up just a systematic rollout of things. So the opportunity for the next council is actually to be making sure that we're planning for growth appropriately with our infrastructure, our housing, and our transport, water and sewer in particular. But that's what we need to be doing in order to ensure that what we're delivering is, yes, sound, but if we're talking about inclusivity and equity, it's about how we deliver the core services of council, planning for the future in a way that's fair for everyone. It's not just the small few that get access to the benefits of the infrastructure. It's not just the people in Port or in any particular place who get access to particular services. It's about doing business in a way that allows it to be equitably received by everyone.
Hamish?
Yeah, so I actually agree with Rachel on this one. I believe that, core council functions is going
Bit louder, Hamish.
I believe that core council functions is going to be the heart at what I'll have to look at when we get in, if we get in, and part of that is just road maintenance, sewerage, making sure that the base infrastructure is there. And yes, there are projects that I think would be great, like community batteries and looking at housing options to make those things more affordable. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm really actually quite worried about the budget, and it's going to hang out thing, be hanging over us the whole time being in council. And as much as these projects are great and would be lovely to go through, I'm just very concerned about, we're in a situation where we might, we're looking at, the council has currently said that they're looking at cutting core services just because of the rate freeze, and that's where I would be focusing, is because that's what the majority of the community has said to me, that's what they're mainly concerned about, roads and core functions. But yeah, I think there are opportunities there in community batteries and housing options. So I'm all for it. It's just I'm just really worried about the budget. So.
Nick?
I'm not sure if my fellow candidates have answered the question correctly. Community services you were talking about, specifically.
The responsibilities of council.
All right, fair enough. I was thinking more along the lines of what we can do with or for our community. For the last 2.5 years, I've been heavily involved in trying to make sure that our homelessness situation doesn't continue to get out of control and that we have services available for them. And that's something that council can assist with. I know that Councillor Edwards, Lauren and myself, have been pushing for an abandoned council building, which has been that way for the whole term, council-owned property that other agencies, other community and government agencies can get together in the one location, provide a hub of a service for the homeless to come along and get their medical done and get their food and clothing and whatever's required. In that respect, any communities are only as strong as their weakest link, and we're just not looking after those at the bottom there, so to speak. But I don't want to put it rudely, but that's what I would like to focus on in terms of ensuring that we do something for the ones that are really struggling.
Thank you. Is Jeanette here?
Yes, I am.
You want to ask the question?
Yes, please.
Do you think council should support community volunteers through grants? And how could that happen if rates are slashed? I'll just give you a little bit of background. I come from Rollins Plains, a tiny community. I don't know how many of the councillors have actually been out there. I do know Hamish has, and he comes from the 7th generation in Rollins Plains. But more importantly, I have been involved in a small community. I know you've been talking about roads and sewerage. We don't have sewerage. We provide our own water. But as a community, we look at a recreation area. It's not a council-run one. And so we rely, and I've actually written a number of grants that have updated that hall and kept it in good condition. That hall and the recreation area is an emergency evacuation area. But I have seen our support in grants being eroded seriously. We've been told that the council doesn't actually fund infrastructure anymore, that we're getting money and we should be paying for it. So I really want to know how you as councillors could support people who do things voluntarily, because as a volunteer, I'm losing interest because of the lack of support from council.
Thanks. Laura.
Right. Quickly, I'd like to look into that a little bit more. I do have the Rollins Plains community plan here, and I will say that I've always said in last term when I was elected that I would like to look at a system where we're not actually just putting a pool of money in there and saying, hey, go all apply and compete, that we're actually looking at your plan and we're saying, like, what do you need? And we're allocating something to each of the towns and villages to go ahead with their plan. And so that is something that I would like to bring. I tested the waters and I got told no in this last term, so it is something I'd like to explore, but I'd like to look more into Rollins Plains community more specifically first about how this is operating for you.
Rachel.
Yes.
Oh, Kingsley.
Married at Rollins Plains. First wedding in the hall at Rollins Plains. Lived there for years. 40 years volunteering. Life member of the Progress Association. I know exactly where you're coming from. So obviously, yeah, what can we do? There are things, the Carnival of Pines, I was one of the members on that when older gentlemen, ladies here will remember that. So there are ways we can fund, but you're right, it needs support from council. It's not so much funding, it's support. That's all we need to get out there and do it. As you said, I've noticed with the floods, you guys got smashed like we did on the North Shore. It was all there when we wanted it, try and get it now. I'm desperately trying to get flood money and stuff so we can put infrastructure in that we know is needed, and it's just evaporated. And I won't say it's a block from council, but it's not an issue, if you know what I mean. We need to get it back on the board. Volunteers are dying in this district. It's just, and we need to get out there and do something about it.
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
Yeah. Like in my grandparents' and great-grandparents' generation, the cost of government was about 3 or 4% of people's income, and the community, people voluntarily interacting, built community centres. They built churches, even cathedrals. They did all kinds of things as a community, and they weren't looking to someone to sprinkle something back to them. They weren't looking to say, oh, let's just throw it up to the government and hope that some sprinkles back down. They said, we'll do it. But nowadays we think, oh, well, unless the government pays for it, we're all looking for, like when you rob Peter to pay Paul, everybody wants to be a Paul, right? But when the government is out of the way, community can flourish. And so we want the community to flourish. We want people to look to one another and say, if we really want this, how much do we want it? Let's fundraise for it. Let's serve the community. Let's give something to the community rather than asking for scraps from Caesar. Thanks.
Yeah, so I support community grants and
Bit louder, Hamish.
Oh yeah, and so does the Labor. These community grants, they enable the volunteers in the community to work together cohesively, and they just need to establish a volunteer group. You do need that little bit of support, at the start, and to deliver good services. And volunteers do a lot of the groundwork, and they just need that little bit to be able to achieve really good things in the community. So yeah, I believe that community grants are something important, and they need to be continued. it's frustrating to see that, back when the rates decision was decided, that, that was one of the things that was looking at being cut in the current, in the previous council. So, I believe that, we do need to have those community supports for volunteer groups, so they can deliver those services. Thank you.
Firstly, thank you so much for your service to your community. I work for a charity and we rely on volunteers at times to do things that we can't do alone. So community services like the hall, they should be supported. I do support community grants. However, I am concerned that due to the state of the budget and previous political agendas at council, that the funds for things like this have been taken away, or things like being able to support community volunteers. I'd love to find a way to assist you and have a chat with you and see what can be done. And I love Roland's Mates, it's really cute. Thank you.
Nick.
Thank you again. In relation to the rate freeze and the community grants, I believe we've maintained the same level for this financial year, which is around $200,000. So that hasn't actually dropped off. There was a concerted effort to make sure that wasn't affected this financial year, which is great. It still doesn't sound like a lot of money when you consider how many volunteer groups and organisations there are across the Hastings region. And it's fair to say that volunteer numbers have steadily dropped off since COVID, and it hasn't recovered, and that's across all areas of sport or community halls, whatever the case may be. In that respect, absolutely support it. That's something that we obviously need to look into going to the next term of council to ensure we don't not just support what's currently there, but we also try and increase that level to make sure more people are getting more of the pie, so to speak. We do see a couple of times a year the list of organisations that receive funding and how much they get, but ultimately we don't get to make that decision. That goes through staff and we just rubber stamp it. So we don't know who's been knocked back and who hasn't in that respect, but certainly keep on trying. I'm assuming you also might try at state level as well for support in that respect. Keep trying is all I can say at this point. Thank you.
Thanks. There's Amy here.
Hi.
Do you want me to ask it or are you going to ask it?
I'll try.
Okay.
I'm very nervous.
Well, I can ask it for you if you like.
First thing I would like to say is, did anyone acknowledge country?
No.
No. So my question was, our ecosystems, we've had floods, we've had fires, our riparian zones. I hope you know what that means. I'll be worried if you don't. Is there any of you that have ideas about involving the indigenous people to work on these riparian zones instead of just planting lomandras? That could be food forests the way they used to be. So my question is, has anyone even thought of that? And please do.
Very good.
So my honest answer to that is no, I had not thought about that. And I think with the tasks that council's already looking at working on in the next few years, which includes our flood studies and risk management, which in the next year or so, next 2 years probably, there's going to be heavy community engagement from council around that to understand the risks and experiences known on the ground from people living and who experience the floods, how it works and what's at risk. So we need, so we'll need all sources of information, and I think certainly Indigenous knowledge has fallen to the wayside in terms of council's awareness over the last couple of years in particular, and it doesn't make sense for us to have resources and knowledge in our community that we're not drawing on. So certainly I think that's something we'll need to be taking into account with that flood work moving forward, and of course the broader health of our water catchment for the future.
Firstly, I think acknowledgement rituals should be optional. At the moment, Dave Pello, who ran his own Christian conference and didn't do a welcome to country, he just said something like, he read a Bible verse saying the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, and that was his ritual. And now he's being sued in the Human Rights Commission for discrimination. I think about 80 or 90% of Aboriginal people would agree that that's grossly unfair and ridiculous. And in terms of bush foods, I've got a bush foods business actually. I'm an academic. I did academic research about 6 or 7 years ago on Indigenous social enterprise growing bush food products up in Broome, WA. So I have actually a keen interest in that area, but I don't think it should be forced on anybody. It doesn't necessarily need to be a policy of council. It's a great business and a great opportunity, and I'm happy to consult with people on that. I'm happy to share knowledge with people, and I'm happy to learn from people on that issue. Thanks.
I'll be brief. As you can imagine, 9 councillors currently, in the term that just passed, have a lot of experience in different things. As you can imagine, we revolve in different networks. And believe it or not, we don't think of everything. And that's where we rely on our community to get back to us, to give us details, email us, provide us information that we're not aware of, because that may not necessarily be something that it's not something we see in everyday life, so to speak, depending on where we are and what we do. So I really appreciate the question in that respect. And again, I encourage everyone not just to wait till we have these wonderful Meet the Candidate sessions, but any time during the term to get in touch. We are easily accessible, to give us ideas, something we can pursue. So thank you for that.
DJ.
Yes. I would like to apologise because I work for an Indigenous organisation and I had to sum up whether I would do my acknowledgement of country in my introduction or use the time for something else. And not many of you know me, so I used it as an introduction, and I'm sorry about that. So to amend that, I would like to acknowledge the verified people whose country we have gathered on this evening. And I would also like to encourage Council to consider Indigenous point of views. They've been doing it for 65,000 plus years, so they know a bit about the country. So thank you for your question.
Yes, I have, and I have had many meetings and conversations. I stumbled across a group called the Jalagir Biodiversity Alliance. It's a little bit further north between Bellingen, Sawtell, Coffs area. And I actually have consulted with Birrai Lands Council with some members to see if that was of interest, but that was just to get the ball rolling and find out. But very much this would need to be an interest that's led, that we're getting led by the folks who want to see some employment in this space or see this kind of activity happening. So I'm all ears, and I'm happy to hear if that does become a desire. But the Marang Balbu Advisory Committee that we had at council was dissolved, and at a recent council meeting we actually had a presentation which suggested that they might be an appetite for that to return. So that would probably be a great space for those sorts of conversations to continue, and I hope that does happen. So yeah, I have had those conversations and I am thinking about those things.
That's all the time we have for the questions. We're going to allow the candidates to do a brief summing up in a moment. If we missed any of your questions because we lost our technical services here for a bit, please come and see me after the forum and we'll make sure they go on next week. Even if you're unable to attend, I'll read them for you. Our next forum will be at Bonnie Hills at their community hall on Tuesday, the 3rd of September at 6:30. But if I missed your question tonight, I apologise, but come and see me after the meeting. We're going to go to the summations now. We're going to begin with Hamish.
So yeah, thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate hearing everyone's questions. I'm looking to get into council, to represent, be one person that represents community and work with the other councillors and hear everyone's feedback in the community. And if you want to, feel free to contact me regarding the policies. And it's about floods and fires, maintenance, housing options, council integrity. So they're the 4 things that I'd like to achieve going to council. And so I'd really like to thank also Lorna for coming along and answering some of those questions for me. She has great knowledge in health. So
That was very appreciated. And also my the other people running my ticket, Sue Baker and Reg Miller. So yeah, no, thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Lisa and Kingsley, for joining tonight. And I think if you get to know them a bit more, you'll learn very quickly we need to get them on council as well. So we need that vote for Group B, Team Shepherd. I'd like to look at this analogy of the team, the 9-person council team. You know, you have a sports team and everyone has a different position, everyone's got different weaknesses, different strengths, and in a good team, you'll find a way to elevate those strengths to, you know, achieve what we want for the team. And you'll find a way to deal with the weaknesses so they're not so much a problem, they're covered. Now, it is a problem when you're developing a, you know, a star team for the community, when some people don't even bother to turn up for the trials. Right? But they still expect to get in, right? Oh, 3 of them, I was in the team last year, I'll be right, we just, you know, turn up and we'll get picked. We won't even have to turn up, we'll get picked anyway. So I really want you to think about people who are turning up for trials, saying where they stand on different things and showing you what role they want to play in the team. I also want you to think about the person that you vote for. How are they going to perform in a team? If they've got a particular set of policies or goals, are they going to be able to convince their team members that it's worthwhile doing it like this? Because if they can't convince their team members, if they can't work effectively with their team members and show respect and collegiality, they will not be able to get anything across the line. It doesn't matter what you stand for in council. If you can't work with other people to convince them that there's a little shred of that that's worth getting over the line, or you can't get enough respect and collegiality from them to make them want to go, you know what, let's do this. You represent some people, let us get it over the line. So when you vote, I really want you to think about those concrete actions that we're promising towards accountability. Concrete actions, not just a word out there. I want you to think about how we plan to represent you as a part of a team and plan to be collegiate and effective as a part of a team to get decisions that reflect the needs of our whole community.
Thank you.
So I'm running for mayor and council. I'm probably not expecting to win the mayoral race. I'm hoping I'll get a spot on council. I've also got members of my team here, Dave Bird and Deborah Cooper. We've got Dwayne Stace and we've got Bree Coates, all excellent people, all parents, business people, and all locals. Very grateful to have my family here, my wife Ilko, my 3 younger kids. I've got 6 kids altogether and 2 grandkids. Very grateful to have their support, and very grateful to have a big volunteer base. Lots of people here tonight, but lots of people out very excited about the message that we've got. Very excited to get their community back and to help put council in its place. I hope you've seen by my answers and by the clear policies that we've got that you know exactly where you stand. Some of you are going to like it and some of you are going to hate it, but no one's going to be confused. And if you do like it, then I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight and for giving me this opportunity. Like I said, this is all pretty new to me. I'm learning as I go along, and even as I'm listening to the fellow candidates, I'm writing things down because I'm like, oh, I have to look that up. Your questions, the ones I couldn't answer, I've written them down. I'm going to look them up. I will get back to you, and I will put this on my social media as well. But that's the type of person I am. If I don't know something, I'll go out there, I'll learn as much as I can about it, asking people who do know it, the knowledge holders, asking for different perspectives and different points of view, and then advocating for the ones that align with my values and the greater community as well. Again, thank you so much. I hope I've represented my platforms and who I am well. I also just want to take a minute to ask you all to really consider voting below the line. There are a lot of people running for council, and like Rachel said, and well, everyone has said, it's important to make sure that your council reflects what you want and your goals as well. So think about that. Thank you very much.
Lauren.
Oh, me?
Sorry, Nick.
Okay.
I'll point to you next.
Look, I'm running for mayor and we also have a ticket, but I'll be honest with you, a lot of people put together 4 people for a ticket just so that they can get above the line on that ballot paper, because a lot of people walk in and they want it to be pretty quick. So not necessarily all members want to be on council, and I actually think a great council would be just a couple of people from each ticket, actually. That would be a good mix and diversity. But I am running for mayor. I am backing myself and asking for your support because I believe I've been doing the work of a mayor in this last term of council. I've been treating it like it's my full-time job, which seems crazy. I've been balancing my work because I work for myself, but I have been giving it my all in this term of council that we've just finished. And I've secured meetings with six ministers. I've promoted a 3-lane solution for the Oxley Highway congestion. I've helped to ensure the top priority is delivering 2 lanes for the Lake Road corridor, advocated for the establishment of park and ride hubs, and you see that in the integrated transport plan now, instigated the identification of suitable sites for renewable energy projects. Again, we have now got grant funding applying for these sorts of projects. Secured investigations for a wildlife land bridge over the Pacific Highway. The state government came back and said they'd look at that with the Houston-Mitchell overpass. Advocated for immediate actions to improve housing choice and affordability. We've had a range of housing round tables, and I ensured that all sorts of different people were at that table, all sorts of different needs were represented in those engagements, including youth, homelessness and Aboriginal housing needs. I've advocated for equity in ferry funding services for us because we're missing out. We're one of 3 councils that are not getting funded by the state government, where everywhere else is. I've instigated the drafting of a budget development policy for the new term of council so that we can get on top of where we're heading financially. And for these reasons, I believe that I am displaying leadership to progress your community strategic plan, because if you can lift any of these things I've done, and you can see that they're in your community strategic plan, they're in your community and village plans. So I'm pursuing what you've already said, and they happen to align really well with what I'm passionate about, and there's my record. So.
Thanks, Aaron. Hard act to follow.
Oh, and the homelessness building. Yes.
Time's up. Mayoral candidate Nick Lipperback. Now, during this term of council, I have stood up and spoken on many issues, but in particular highlighting the need for a new housing strategy, providing a wider range of homes with a greater percentage of affordable homes, and doing what we can for the most vulnerable members of our community, as I mentioned earlier. This has been and will continue to be one of our priorities. I've been working on increasing the number of local businesses successfully vying for council tenders. I've been supporting tourism and drawing more events to our region as much as possible, improving sporting facilities, a better road network, safer beaches, and the list goes on. But I think importantly, I've been listening to you and your feedback. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to follow up on that. And that's what a few of us have been doing in council, not ignoring your input. Team Lipperback, that's Group D on the ballot paper. I call it D for democracy. That's what we're all about. We have 4 members on our ticket. 2 of us are Liberal, 2 of us are non-aligned to any political party. We work together fine. I can work together with a team of 9, no matter where they come from. And we'll work on improving and nailing the basics of council's responsibilities and to build that strong platform as we move into the future. Let me also add, when elected as mayor, the community will benefit from my positive relationship that I've had for a long time with state and federal members and with our local chambers in the Camden Haven, in Wauchope and Hinterland and Port Macquarie, something we haven't had for a number of years. Someone has been rubbing other people the wrong way for a while. I can help resolve that. Team Lipperback includes John Bailey. Thank you very much, John. He wanted to speak tonight, but I kept taking his questions. Ellie Prapaz and Luke Darrell. We are committed to our community, and thank you for joining us again tonight.
We have been streaming on YouTube, so if you want to watch it again, in case you missed something, or you just want to watch it again, you'll find it on YouTube underneath the candidates at Wauchope. And we'll be, as I mentioned before, having our next meeting at Bonnie Hills next Tuesday evening at the community centre at 6:30, the community hall, I should say. So thank you all for coming. I am sorry that we've had technical difficulties, but I hope you got them together this evening, and thank you again to all the candidates who constantly have had the courage to show up here, answer your questions, just as before, and tonight again, they haven't seen the questions, a lot of them beforehand, so they've been taking on the land here for you. So please thank them for showing up. Good night.
Oh, they didn't. I think it's an important question. Yeah, I told you.
So that's so that means that we're so year-olds was about
Yeah, put it on the next one. I'll write an email address on there. Is it really good? Yeah, no, it's not all very
it's